Hello, this is Professor Kuehn. Welcome back to Introduction to Astronomy at Wisconsin Lutheran College. For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the work of Aristotle, an ancient Greek philosopher who thought a lot about the motion of the stars, the moon, and the planets. He wrote this book called On the Heavens. Today, I want to start into our chapter on Ptolemy, another Greek astronomer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by going through some of the biographical notes on Ptolemy that are written in A Student's Guide to the Great Physics Texts, Volume 1, Chapter 5. This is called The World of Ptolemy. After having gone through some of these biographical notes, then what I'll do is go right into Chapter 1, which is his preface, where Ptolemy talks about the purpose, what he's going to be talking about in his famous book, the Almagest. So, here are first of all some introductory biographical notes about Ptolemy, and I'm just going to, if you don't mind, read this from my textbook. So Claudius Ptolemy, who lived around 100 to 165 AD, so in the 2nd century after Christ, is perhaps the most influential astronomer of the ancient world. He lived and worked in the city of Alexandria, which you might know is in northern Africa. By the way, so Ptolemy, he lived in North Africa, he was an African, and this was during the time of the Roman Empire, and he wrote in Greek, actually in Koine Greek, which is the same language in which the New Testament of the Bible was largely written in. Anyhow, he lived and worked in the city of Alexandria. He carried out astronomical observations and writing about diverse topics. Topics like optics, the study of light, geography, music, mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy. Ptolemy's most famous work is called the Almagest, and it served as a textbook and a practical reference for calculating astronomical events for the next 1500 years. The name of the book, literally the greatest, derives from the title which was given to it by Arab scholars and translators from his original Greek text during the 9th century AD. The Almagest itself consists of 13 books. In the first book of the Almagest, Ptolemy begins with his theory of the Earth, its size, its shape, and the place in the universe. The remainder of books 1 and 2 provide careful demonstrations of how to perform careful calculations using plane and spherical geometry. For example, Ptolemy demonstrates how to determine the right ascension of any point on the ecliptic. The right ascension, as we'll talk about more later in the class, is the distance of an object from the vernal equinox point, that is the first point of Aries. He also talks about how to divide the surface of the Earth into geographical zones using parallels. So this is kind of the introduction to modern geography and cartography, by the way. He also talks about how to calculate the lengths of shadows, the position and time of the sunrise, and the angle between the ecliptic, remember that's the line that goes through the circle of the zodiac, the angle between the ecliptic and the horizon, that is the line that demarcates the sky from the land from where you're standing. These are some of the methods that will prove useful when he later develops his theories of the motion of the sun. That happens in chapter 3 or book 3, of the moon in book 4, the fixed stars in books 7 and 8, and the planets books 9 through 13. In this class, we're going to just look at some of the rudimentary chapters, or the beginning chapters of Ptolemy. So the reading selections included in this chapter are comprised of the first several chapters of book 1 of the Almagest. These were kindly translated from the original Greek by Reverend Aaron Jensen of Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary a couple of years ago. Ptolemy begins in chapter 1 by explaining the difference between theoretical and practical philosophy. So what he's going to do is kind of situate astronomy, that's his main topic, astronomy, into where does this fit in with the rest of philosophy? So we're going to ask where exactly does Ptolemy situate the study of astronomy? Next, after explaining the outline of the Almagest in chapter 2, Ptolemy is going to offer a summary of his theory of the heavens and the earth. So in chapters 3 through 8, he's going to provide a framework for understanding the Almagest as a whole. He's going to argue against his opponents, who claim that the earth itself is in motion, so he is going to be a geocentrist just like Aristotle. This, after all, was the ancient opinion that was espoused by the Pythagoreans, the idea that the earth moves, but was later rejected by Aristotle, as you know from reading Aristotle's book On the Heavens. The careful reader of the Almagest will probably recognize many of Aristotle's arguments and proofs in Ptolemy's writings. Can you identify them? By the way, the Ptolemaic worldview came under very vigorous attack by thinkers during the 16th and 17th centuries. Indeed, understanding the Almagest is really essential in understanding the astronomical works of Copernicus and Kepler and Galileo. They wrote largely in reaction to his and Aristotle's geocentric worldview. So, let's go ahead and start into the preface of Ptolemy's Almagest. We'll pick that up in my next lecture.